1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Smartest Amazon Seller Podcast. This is my first recording after just having a second baby girl. So I am rusty. You'll have to forgive me, but guess what? We're going to start off with the same goal that we always have. This podcast is to just help you be a little bit smarter about selling on Amazon, get to that phase where either you can become a full-time Amazon seller, or if you're already full-time, like let's hit 7, 8, and 9 figures. We're going to even talk about a few 9-figure sellers. I have been an Amazon seller for a little over 11 years, and I've had someone work alongside with me, push me and challenge me for quite some time. When I'm in over my head, I get Michael. If I want to sprinkle some fun on something, I just sprinkle on Michael. If I want someone to join me in stressing about whatever I'm stressing about, I'll get Michael. So I guess today's guest. I'm joined by Michael White. He is currently Chief Strategy Officer at Smart Scout. Basically, that's a title that gets him really busy in a lot of different directions. Talks to lots of Amazon sellers all the time. So, Michael, welcome to the pod.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me. I know some of you will recognize my voice. I've been on a couple times before. Really, Scott brings me out whenever we have the hardest issues to tackle, or we forgot to schedule someone else. So it's usually the latter, and here I am. Well, glad to be here, Scott.
You know what? I'll be able to introduce you as a private label seller one day if you ever end up finishing your product under development.
Oh yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there at some point.
It does lead, like, good private label products require serious development. A lot of creativity, a lot of testing. That might be the next time that we bring you on. And I'm sure I just gave you another ulcer as a reminder. One of the things that we're going to talk about is like what we're actively doing. So I sell every day. I jump into Seller Central. I've got a private label business. I have a wholesale business. And, but one of the underserved audiences is the reseller audience, wholesale. And I just know them really well. And I think they're often misunderstood, but Smart Scout data suggests, it says that about 40% of the top 10,000 Amazon sellers are resellers. These are big sellers. These do have sophistication. They do know Amazon FBA better than anyone else you'll ever meet. And some people, they're at odds with resellers. I don't actually care about the debate as much, because as the way things are set up, these resellers, these wholesalers, they're going to keep coming, and they actually continue to grow. This is not a shrinking segment. As long as selling on Amazon is more profitable than driving Uber, you should expect more people to come in. We participate and actually organize a lot about the conference AMZ United. It is it's going on in just 2 weeks. Actually, by the time you hear this, it'll be within a week. So if you're you have 2 options. You have 3 options. 1, you could just ignore everything that I'm about to say. 2, you could Google for some flights to New York City. Or 3, you could be like, oh, I'll just take the session recordings. Well, number 2 is what me and Michael are choosing. Michael, this is year 2. What do you feel like is different? What's the same about AMZ United year over year?
I'll say, like, from the organization perspective, year 1, you're always gonna have a little bit more chaos, but chaos can also be fun. I mean, there's kind of that wild card of you're not sure what to expect. It's impossible to know what an event looks like until you show up. Versus year 2, we've seen it before. We've seen the people come in the doors. We've seen them have a great time. It's very, very different. So from the organization side, it's a little bit more, I don't want to say relaxed, but a little bit. I have expectations a little bit clearer versus just kind of the wild card of running an
Yeah.
event the first time around.
I mean, yeah, last year we had no expectations, and like it was wild to get, to sell hundreds of tickets. Uh, and so now year two, we're like, oh, we expect that. We expect to be as big as last year, and like it's looking about the same size. You never know those wild last weeks. And someone listens to a podcast and decides to upend their weekend. Um, Now I'll share one of my surprises of last year, and it's kind of weird that this is a surprise, but like just like the just a lot of energy. People were excited to be there. People felt like, oh my goodness, finally, like people on stage are talking about things that I can do in my business today. And um, actually, one of the people that like really spearheads this energy is Amazon Lit. That's Eric and Sebastian, and I I enjoy hearing them speak, but I felt like last year when they spoke, like I was not prepared for you know the hype that they bring. Sure, it helps that they're actually quite intelligent when it comes to selling on Amazon, but uh, I think their way that they deliver is just so it's hard to leave without having a smile. So that's like one thing I liked. And this year we've got them back on stage um, at a prime time. So should be hard to actually compete against them. We have two main stages, and they're going to be on one. I feel bad for whoever's on the other.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's going to be fun. The energy from stage was awesome. One story, I don't know, something that stuck out to me last year was actually kind of a problem I ran into. So I was emceeing on the one of the main stages last year, and so I didn't get to connect as much as I wanted to on the floor. And I don't know if you're how familiar you are with comedians, Scott, but Shane Gillis, he was telling a story recently where he had to open for Dave Chappelle. And one problem that he ran into that I relate to is that he would get up there to open, lights are on, there's like 10% of the audience is sitting, and you're basically trying to entertain and get people stoked as they slowly trickle in. And how impossible that was, and how like you just kind of bomb. Well, that's how I felt at times, but it wasn't because
Yeah,
like people were late. It was because there was so much energy to get together and mingle. The biggest competition wasn't another stage. It was actually just the center of the floor was just always a ball of, I swear, like 300 people who just wanted to talk. And I don't even know if they even sat in on one session. Like, your competition wasn't the speakers. It was people are so excited to be in front of each other and like to network and connect. And so while it made my job harder, it was great to see. It was great to see that energy and the fact that like they were like magnets. You couldn't pull people apart from like that central lounge area. And I'm anticipating something similar this time around.
totally. Um, and I was on the floor a lot, and it was kind of crazy because a lot of podcast listeners were there. A lot. I would turn from one, and then a second later, someone else is like, "Oh, listen to your podcast," and I'm like, and it's always fun, or it's just like a jarring experience when I don't know. I'm like, okay, have you kind of listened? And every once in a while they say something like, "Oh, you've really listened." Like, um, I don't completely understand. There is a segment of users that wasn't this year's, last year. I think about six people shared on Instagram that like their top podcast that they listened to was like, okay, this podcast and Joe Rogan. And those were like, I swear I saw five screenshots where like we were the one and two. And I'm like, you are an interesting person if the content you consume is like Joe Rogan, Scott Needham, uh, and put them in the same. I wish I could be uh, as flamboyant or Joe Rogan just like he gets a lot of interesting takes. Hopefully, my goal is just to help you with your business, and if we entertain you along the way, that's great. But on the entertainment side, like you'll get that. at AMZ United. Um, and as a lot of podcast listeners, they were there. So if you've liked what you've listened to and you want to meet people like that's uh, certainly up for grabs. Well, I've got one thing that I'm like, whoa, we've arrived. Like, what's happening this year? That's cool. We have some of the largest sellers in the world. We have the largest Amazon seller in the world. We have Pattern showing up. They'll be on a stage or two. I actually don't know. I don't follow every bit of the programming because it changes week to week. But um, so that's on its face. It's cool to like have like the people that you want to model after that have like achieved success, that have like hundreds of employees in their reselling business. Like they're going to be there. They're going to have some of their executives attending. Yeah. Do you have anything that you're preparing for this year that you're like, okay, I'm excited for this?
I have two. The first is a silly one, and that's the casino night last year it was fantastic. It was a great time, and that's the night before. So I love a good
Yeah,
party, and I have to specifically share the best part of the party, and I think you know exactly what I'm going to, Scott.
yeah, I
So
do.
the company that we signed on with, they bring these little electronic mechanical pigs, and there's a pig race, and it is the best thing I've ever seen. So I don't know how they do it. I don't know what RNG is involved, but the pigs randomly will pick speeds that they'll race, and everyone has a ticket, and everyone's shouting as you watch these little pigs race down a table, and it is a sight to behold. If you're not planning on being there the night before for casino night, you should highly consider changing your plans because it
So
was it was a hoot.
I was actually FaceTiming. It was nighttime in my at home. I was FaceTiming right then, and I came back to the very tail end, and I knew right then. I was like, oh, I just missed something. I could hear
It,
it.
it was a moment that was for sure. I had banded together with because you could pick which color pig you wanted to bet on, and there was a bunch of us playing craps. It was a great time. A bunch of guys had come up from Brazil to be there for AMZ United, and we all went. We bet on the same pig, and it was wild. We did not win, but we were winning like the whole time until like we sunk into fourth place. But it was a riot. It was a riot. It was electric.
I think probably half the listeners have either a suspension, an ASIN takedown experience. And it is the worst part of selling on Amazon. It is the worst. It's gotten better, no question. Uh, doesn't mean it's gone. And I come across people that have had their account suspended, and I hear different things. And the truth is, I am not the expert of like how to actually get back up. I've written a lot of plans of action. I wrote some last year, uh, and I've seen some get accepted, I've seen some get rejected, and the last time that we got suspended was in 2020, and we actually hired a consultant to come in and just kind of do it for us. And yeah, it cost us money, but uh, we were losing six figures a day of revenue. So I didn't care how much, like whatever we spent was like worth it. And because I even see this year different new suspensions that are happening. I'm seeing some variation abuse kind of get enforced, and not just like enforced, but like it's actual like real like takedowns, um, and like new categories. And some of the best compliance experts will be in attendance. We will have Riverbend. We will have um, Joy from Seller Basics. We will have Paul Raffleson. We're going to have others that like can actually help in these situations. So when people come to me like, oh, I've been suspended, the truth is the best advice I could give them is like, hey, you should go talk to these people. And it does matter if you have a personal relationship with them, because, uh, it's just already, it's faster. You're going to get attention a little bit better if that day comes knocking, if you need their help. it does help to have that relationship, no question. I've built that relationship. I've even grown that relationship just by talking to them on a podcast. I don't do it on purpose, but like they give me better attention. But I haven't been suspended in 4 years, so like I don't need it. But like I know if I ever come to them, I've scratched their back enough times that like I can get what I really need. And so I actually think from a justification standpoint, meeting those people, having them as a part of your world is worth it. Something happens. Amazon comes with a new policy. This happened like 2 months ago. Like Amazon started doing different types of like takedowns or gating. And James, who's one of our co-hosts, he's like, oh, it looks like Joy's session is going to be completely full. So we're going to have people on stage. They're going to be talking about how to deal with this type of stuff. While I love and care a lot about the hacks, the tricks, the tips, the discipline of growing a business, the data, to me, that is actually all secondary to the lifeline that is compliance with Amazon's policies. So that's my shtick.
I couldn't agree more. There's nothing quite like having someone in your Rolodex that you can call and get something done, or somebody who can scratch a specific itch versus having to like search and having to like ask a friend of a friend of a friend. Expanding the Rolodex honestly is one of the biggest reasons why these types of events are just so valuable. And you make friends, you make connections, you make people who hopefully are a little bit better than you, who can motivate you. You're going to meet people who are a little bit behind and people who are right where you are, who you can kind of try and keep pace with. And that's the beauty of these types of networking opportunities.
What are you going to be spending your time doing this year? Are you MC again?
I'm MC again, so I will not be on the floor a ton. I'll probably get subbed out at some point in time. They'll kick me off eventually. I'm excited to network. Like I said, I'm excited for Casino Night, but I'm excited to see people. I'm excited to expand my own Rolodex, meet people who are doing cool things.
I knew that I was like, there's a part of this conference, like actually any good conference, after a while, like, trust me, I think the content matters. But after a few years, some of the people like, yeah, they come for the content, but like, they're like, hey, but like the people that I were talking to last year, they're going to be there again. I want to continue those conversations. It just kind of becomes its own thing. And so, you're going to see a lot of people that are like, as I've been doing this for a few years, see a lot of familiar faces, and it does get fun. We have more exhibitors than we've ever had before. So more solution providers who actually know what type of business you're trying to solve. It's kind of annoying to show up to Prosper and go booth after booth after booth of like, okay, I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. And finally come across someone like, okay, I think you guys are worth it. Or you guys understand what I'm going through. This was kind of just like a reconnect podcast because I actually haven't recorded one in almost a month. And so that's why we got Michael and this impromptu conversation. So if you ever have any questions, if you want to see me in person, well, you know where to go. And, you can carry this conversation of a podcast into real life, face to face. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Michael, for being the flex guest. And next time we'll get you on and with some like leading headlines, but you're an MC, so that's leading at least one of the stages.
Thanks, Scott. Okay. Thanks for having me.
Yep. We'll wrap that up. See you guys next week. And if make sure you tell everyone that sells on Amazon what your favorite podcast is. There we go. All right. Take care.
1, 2, 3.